Welcome in. We have reached double-digit days at the World Cup. It is match day 10 here on World Cup Preview World Cup today. Groups E and F take on their second matches of the group stage today. Germany taking on the Ivory Coast in Toronto. Ecuador and Curaçao facing off in what could be what most likely will be an elimination game for Curaçao. In Groups F, you have the Netherlands and Sweden taking place in a very important game for the top of the group. And closing out the day is Tunisia and Japan in a very, very special World Cup game. We'll get all into that. There's a lot to get to, so buckle in and let's get after it. Welcome in to World Cup Preview World Cup today here on the Nick Burt Sports Network. I am your host, as always, Nick Burt. Groups E and Groups F, as I just mentioned, a lot to get into today. We're going to dive right into it. We're going in chronological order today. I keep switching it up just to keep you on your toes. Today we're going in chronological order, which means we start in Group F. A game that is taking place in Houston at the Houston Stadium. It is a all UEFA battle between the Netherlands and Sweden. Now, of course, the Netherlands coming off their 2-2 draw against Japan in the first match game of this group. Some said it was one of the more exciting games of this group stage so far. Sweden coming off a 5-1 thrashing of Tunisia, a team that currently sits top of the group. Going to be very interesting to see how this plays out tactically, because there are a lot of interesting moving pieces here. And I say moving pieces because this Netherlands team kind of was expected to top this group or finish second in this group. Well, at this rate, and with the way they played on, I believe it was Sunday, might have been Saturday, days run together, I think it was Sunday. They left a little bit, to be desired. I was worried about that from the beginning. Ronald Koeman already was on the hot seat coming into this tournament. The question is now, you got to get 3 points here. And the Switzerland team just looks like a monster. I know it was Tunisia, and we'll get into their story when we get there. But, it started fast, and then it just kept going. It was Ajari in the 7th minute. Then it was Isak in the 30th. Gyökeres in the 59th. Svanberg in the 84th. And then Ayari back again in the 6th minute of stoppage time to make it 5-1 for Sweden. It's a result I don't think a lot of people saw coming. Personally, I know I didn't see it coming. I said this really felt like a 0-0 game, and Sweden blew that out of the water. They were absolutely dominant start to finish. You look at what Graham Potter has done. You don't see a lot of people going with a two-striker system. But those are going to be your two best players for Sweden. And he said, you know what? We'll roll with the two-striker system, and look what happened. They both scored against Tunisia. They assisted on each other's goals. And, of course, I'm speaking of Victor Gyökeres and Alexander Isak. And they both had very, very good games. So it shows that Potter was playing to the abilities of this team, which is something that you don't see much in football these days, which is kind of just hard to believe. Like I said, there's still a lot to be desired with the Netherlands. I know that they went up both times, and they were up in this game twice, and they conceded. So Japan never had the lead. They technically controlled possession 60-40. I know they had about 10 shots in the game, I believe, which it is what it is, I guess. Now, this is a match the Netherlands should be winning. This, I think, is any shot at winning the group. You do have to win this game no matter what. I know with the last game it was, well, you drew Japan. Japan is probably the toughest team in this group. You'll settle for a point. And I get that. But with the way this Sweden team played, it kind of felt like the start of a dark horse story, because truly, how many people were talking about Sweden pre-tournament? Not many. And I will agree, I had them finishing third just because of how miserable their qualifying was. The problem with that is Graham Potter was not the manager during qualifying. He was the manager for the playoffs. He was not the manager for qualifying. So it's an interesting dynamic here. The Netherlands should win, but after what I saw with Sweden, I'm leaning with Sweden here. I'll take them with a 2-1 victory. I think Sweden starts to make some noise here. This is when everybody starts to take notice and say, okay, Sweden was the dark horse, because you can brush off the first game and say, oh, it was Tunisia, this and that. But when you beat a team like the Netherlands, then yeah, people are going to take notice. And this is a perfect opportunity for them. I think they play this game perfectly to their strengths. I think they get a 2-1 victory. And I'll do it again. The duo get the goals. I think it will be Isak and Gyökeres get the goals for Sweden. Now, this game really could go any of three ways, obviously, either side win or the draw. Just feels like, and I may be reading too much into that Tunisia game, and that is very possible. And Tunisia might be awful, but personally, I'm throwing my faith behind Sweden. I think they get the win here. So next up in our chronological order, it is going to be a battle atop Group E, and that is Germany going up against Côte d'Ivoire, of course, the Ivory Coast, in Toronto. This is a massive game, top of the group. I believe the winner clinches a spot in the round of 32, and then if results go other ways, potentially a winner could see their way to clinching the group in match day 2. Now, both these sides have won already this tournament. Germany, the 7-1 thrashing of Curaçao. And then the Ivory Coast stealing it at the death. I believe a goal in the 89th or 90th minute. 1-0 victory over Ecuador. Now, I know a lot of people were kind of underestimating Côte d'Ivoire coming into this tournament just because it felt like they weren't really tested. It felt like they didn't really have, outstanding players. Well, there were some names that, made their presence felt on this stage. One of them being Jan Diomande, who his story is absolutely incredible. Obviously came from the Ivory Coast, went to the United States for high school, played at, I believe, the IMG Academy, was found by Leganés in the Segunda Division in Spain, played there for a year, gets a transfer to RB Leipzig. And you got to remember, this kid's only 19 years old, so all this happened in about 3-4 year span, and now he's showing off on the international stage. Created the most chances in their game against Ecuador, had the most touches in the opposition's box against Ecuador. Just a brilliant, brilliant player. Of course, Wilfried Singo, I don't think he technically broke out on the international stage, but he had a phenomenal game against Ecuador. And then, of course, Amad Diallo has the goal that wins them the game. Phenomenal game from him. On the other side, Nemcha, 6th minute. Schlotterbeck, 38th. Havertz in the 5th minute of first half stoppage time. Musiala in the 47th minute, Brown in the 68th, Unlov in the 78th, and Havertz again in the 88th. 7-1. A thrashing of Curacao. It was fun for the first 35 minutes when, Germany went up 1-0 after 6 minutes. Curacao equalized in the 21st minute. It felt like, oh my gosh, this is going to be absolutely incredible. And then the avalanche happened. The German team looks really good on paper. I got to give them that. They do look quite good. The question is, Curaçao and Côte d'Ivoire, two very different animals. We've seen Germany kind of struggle in the run-up to this tournament. Obviously, Côte d'Ivoire is a step up. How does that factor in here? It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I'm still taking Germany to win here just because that's the correct thing to do. But I think there's a chance that Côte d'Ivoire can eke out a point and have this game end up level, which would be absolutely crazy. That throws this group into just a absolute mess because Germany will have Ecuador in the final game. Ivory Coast would have Curaçao in the last game. Goal differential becomes a massive, massive player there. That could be an incredible watch, but I'm still, like I said, I'm taking Germany to win here. I think they clinch their spot in the round of 32 with a victory because truly they are just the better team. It is as simple as that. They have the better talent. Even though Ivory Coast have some really good players, I'm still taking Germany here. We're going to roll with the Germans in what should be, hopefully, an incredible match. We move on to our third game of the day, and we are headed back down to America. We're headed down to Kansas City. Don't call it Arrowhead because it's not Arrowhead. It is the Kansas City Stadium. It is Ecuador going up against Curaçao. 8 p.m. kickoff. Both teams basically playing for their tournament lives. Kind of feels like we know how this one's going, but let's get into it anyways. So as was mentioned with the last game, Ecuador had the game kind of stolen from them. 90th minute goal. They were cruising to a point. That point taken away. They currently sit on 0 points in third place in this group because Curaçao are at a -6 goal differential. I don't really know if there's much to preview here. I'm wearing this beautiful Curaçao shirt tonight. This is honestly one of my favorites at the World Cup. It's a shame they will not be wearing it. It's just, it's vibrant colors. I love the style of it. It's an incredible jersey. But Ecuador should run away with this game. Theoretically. I thought they were going to run away with the game against Côte d'Ivoire, and they did not. So I'm still taking Ecuador here. This should be a game they're dominating. If they're not, there are massive, massive questions about this Ecuador team. And really, there's not much else to say about that. When you know a team's going to be outmatched, it just is what it is. Now, if Curaçao can get a point here, then it's a great story. I just personally don't see that happening. And, it would be cool if Curaçao could get a point because, that's another team in CONCACAF that has gotten, their first point at a World Cup. But just kind of looking at their results from this run into the World Cup, it's like, oh boy, that is not great. Obviously, they had the 4-1 loss to Scotland. They had a 5-1 loss to Australia, a 2-0 loss to China, and then their last game before that was their 0-0 game against Jamaica, which clinched them a spot in the World Cup. So they've had 3 games in this lead up to the World Cup, which is kind of crazy, but that's neither here nor there. Give me Ecuador to win this one quite easily. So that game kicks off at 8, which means it will end around 10. We have a 2-hour gap before the final game of the day where we travel back to Group F, as it will be Tunisia taking on Japan in a very, very, very special game for the FIFA World Cup. And it's a very special game because it is going to be the 1000th FIFA World Cup game ever played. It's kind of hard to believe that, this tournament's been around for 96 years and we have reached the 1000th game. Would it have been nicer to have a flashier game as the 1000th game? Yes, but that's not how this schedule plays out. And we are sitting here now, Tunisia-Japan. What might, storyline-wise, very, very intriguing game to say the least. Well, let's just get into it. The 5-1 loss for Tunisia saw Tunisia the next morning sack Sabri Lachumi, their manager. You rarely see that happen at a World Cup where a manager is sacked mid-tournament. I guess I can call it mid-tournament because they've played a game. He has been replaced with a legend of the managerial game, Hervé Renard. The 57-year-old manager, managed Saudi Arabia at the last World Cup. He managed the France women's team at the 2023 Women's World Cup. Prior to that, I believe he's won, I believe, like 3 or 4 AFCONs, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's only won 2. He won it with Zambia in 2012. He's won it with the Ivory Coast in 2015. He won the African Nations Championship with Morocco in 2018. And then he had the stint with Saudi Arabia, 2022 World Cup, beats Argentina in that first game, doesn't get out of the group, rejoined the Saudi Arabia national team in October of 24, got sacked in April, so, 3 months before the World Cup, and now he's back at the World Cup managing another African side in Tunisia. Just a wild turn of events here. And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out because you have 2 games basically to save a tournament. And realistically, it's 1. You have to get at least a point here against Japan, which is going to be very tough given Japan are one of the favorites in this group. In the way they fought back against the Netherlands for both goals on Sunday, I think just reiterated that fact to me that they are one of these top teams in this group. And this is going to be a very tough test, I think, for Tunisia. Because it's in Monterrey. Playing in Mexico is not going to be easy. Although it might give a slight advantage to Tunisia just because of the weather. But this Japan team is, I won't say miles better. I'll say kilometers better. Because kilometers shorter than miles. They're kilometers better than Tunisia. I mean, you got this Tunisia side was not great in the run-up to the World Cup, which is why I question why Sabri Lachimi was even managing coming into this World Cup. If the plan was to fire him after 1 game, why are you even bringing him in the first place? Feels like a question for another day, but this Japan side kind of keeps rolling, and I don't see that train stopping. I think they get another win here. As much as the Hervé Renard story would be absolutely phenomenal if they somehow sneak into 3rd place, which it feels like you need to win this game if you want that to happen because you're playing the Netherlands in the last game. Crazier things have happened, but I don't see that in the plans right now. Maybe if you were playing Sweden in the last game, but we saw how that played out. So I'm taking Japan to win. I'm not going to go 5-1 scoreline. I don't think it's going to be that far off. It feels like a 3-1, 4-1 game. So with that being said, that is going to wrap it up for preview of match day 10 here at the World Cup. So thank you so much for watching. If you just stumbled across the Nick Bird Sports Network, and just make sure you click like, make sure you click subscribe, tell anybody you know about it. We're keeping the train rolling until this tournament is over. So much more football to come. We are only 10 days into, I think, a 39-day tournament, so we're kind of getting close to the 1/3 mark, but lot more football to go, and it's only going to get better from here. So thank you so much for watching, and we will see you again soon for another episode here on the Nick Burt Sports Network.